Mrs. Tickle and the Scarecrow. Mrs. Tickle was a mouse, a small, neat grey mouse with twitchy whiskers and bright little eyes like buttons. All day long she swept, cooked and sewed for her 10 little Tickles. Each morning she put on her bonnet and shawl. With a basket over her arm she set off across the cornfield. In the field stood Sam Scarecrow. He was old and tattered, but Mrs. Tickle wasn't a bit afraid of his flapping rags. They were good friends, for Sam kept the birds away from the corn. That meant there was more food for her. Mrs. Tickle spent hours finding the tastiest ears of corn for her little ones. When the basket was full, she would scurry back along the hedge until she reached her tiny doorway under the brambles. One night there was a dreadful storm. Mrs. Tickle tucked her 10 little Tickles up in bed and read them stories by candlelight. "Will the wind blow our house away, Mummy?" asked Tommy Tickle the baby. "No, no, darling, we are safe and snug and warm. Sleep tight, little ones, sweet dreams," and she bustled away to stir the fire. She sat down in a rocking chair, put her tired feet on the fender, and dozed. Outside the wind shrieked and roared. It tried to squeeze under her front door, but she spoke very firmly. "Go away, you big bad wind. Go to sleep." And it did, suddenly. Next morning early, Mrs. Tickle set off with her basket. When she reached Sam, she saw that something was wrong. He hadn't got a face. "Why, Sam, whatever has happened to you?" she cried, peering up at him. Oh my, Mrs. Tickle, I was nearly blown away last night. All the straw's fallen out of my head and I've lost my hat." Poor Sam, he was in a sorry state. What was worse, the birds were all over the cornfield, gobbling up all they could find. "This will never do," said Mrs. Tickle, and she ran as fast as her legs would carry her back to her little house. She gathered up needle and thread and rounded up all the little Tickles. Tommy rode in her basket as he was so very tiny. Together they marched in a long line across the field to Sam. Mrs. Tickle had given her instructions, and each mouse knew what to do. She climbed up the old tattered Scarecrow, and in no time at all had mended the large holes in his head. Only one tiny gap was left at the top. "All right, children, you may start," she called. Each little mouse took a piece of straw in its mouth, ran up to Sam's head and popped the straw through the gap. At the end of the day, Sam lifted his new head. 2 big tears rolled down his cheeks. "I'm ever so grateful, Mrs. Tickle. Bless you all." From that day on, no bird dared go near the cornfield. Sam was the fiercest Scarecrow in the land, and he made sure that Mrs. Tickle and the little Tickles always had the best corn.